What's up, Internet? You're tuning in to episode 38 of FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
We are also being joined by my cat's butt briefly in frame there. Okay, there you go, buddy. He loves to just walk right in front of my notes.
More tail than but that was because you've got a towel or a blanket set down for him on that side. So
That's true.
He wants to get to his bed. That's your fault.
That's his spot. Yeah, I mean, I guess, fuck me, right? Like, it's only my desk.
Yeah, but in his mind, that's not your desk. That's his desk, and you're sat using his things. So that's your fault.
I guess you're right, Steve. I guess you're right. How you doing this week, bud?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've got as of right now, as you're listening to this, I'm already on vacation. My Sixers are in the playoffs, and as of recording, doing real good. I'm having a good time.
Fingers crossed they're still doing good, because otherwise that will really ruin your vacation. Because I know you'll be checking the scores while you're down there anyway.
One of the games is on my friend M's birthday, who will be with me on vacation, so that could be a real day ruiner. Yeah, so hopefully it goes well.
Or like a real positive, like, oh yeah, this is just the cherry on top of a great day.
Real feather in your cap. I'm already on vacation, living my best life. Let's watch our team kick ass. That sounds great. So go Philadelphia. But yeah, I'm having a great week. And I'm having an even better time now that I'm here with you, Steve. I'm really looking forward to this episode, you know? Feels like we never talk, you know?
Not at all. No, never ever. No, it's not like we record like 3 episodes a week and then sometimes stream together and sometimes do more content than that.
Still not sick of each other. And you know who else isn't sick of us yet? Our Patreon producers for the month of April. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valens, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we really, truly appreciate your support of this fine program. How'd you like that segue, Steve?
That was a really good segue. That was actually really
just feel like
really
we're getting
nice.
better and better all the time, you know? Like, just feels great. Just feels great, buddy. Speaking of feeling great, I feel great about this here episode this week. And we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Steve's experience so far with Far Cry 6 over on the Steam Deck. So you'll get some Steam Deck conversation, don't worry. I know we got a bunch of new subscribers this week thanks to some of those that Steam Deck content. So hello to all the new folks. Thank you so much for coming in and being here. I hope you're enjoying the stay. And you know what? This is your first time right into the show. Right? And you know how you can write into the show. There are a bunch of ways. You can hit us up at questions@flipscreen.games. You can head over to flipscreen.games, which is our website, and find links to our Discord, where we've got an always growing community of dorks just like you, talking about video games, trying to convince each other to buy Steam Decks. It's a good time, and it's a safe, inclusive community for you to come and chat games, whoever you are, as long as you are kind. So come and join us, be a part of what we're doing here. We'd love to have you. And you can also find links to a bunch of other cool places we're doing content. We're streaming multiple days a week. Steve's been doing his Wednesday retro streams. We've been doing Elden Ring a lot lately, some multiplayer stuff. It's been a good time. We've been real active over there. So if you've never caught a stream, go catch a VOD or come and catch us live. Go click that follow button and you'll know when we go live. So let's jump in to the Far Cry conversation here, Steve, because I'm interested. You were tweeting about it a little bit earlier today, and it really feels like you and I are of the same opinion on this game, where it's like, man, there's so many choices I straight up don't like, but it's still pretty fun.
Oh my god, so much. Yeah, right. That's
it's still all right. It's still good.
So I'm playing this, as you said, on the Steam Deck. So this has become my latest TV game, which, if you don't know, is Pete's term that he coined for a game that you play while you're watching TV, as in not a game that I'm playing on the TV. So it's a fun game to just run around and shoot things and steal things and take over outposts and do all of that stuff. but they've really fucked up the Far Cry formula along the way. And this game, even more so than than Far Cry 5 for me, feels more egregious because there's just so much stuff in here that that's lifted from other Ubisoft games. It's just like, what identity does Far Cry have anymore? Like, this just feels like you could have put any name on this. This could have been a Ghost Recon. There's like elements of Rainbow Six in this, like some of the sneak stuff and like peeking around the doors. But there's so many systems that they've chucked in here now. I just don't know where to start. Like, there's this camp building stuff where you go into a third person mode in Far Cry and you're like wandering around the camp and you've got to like build things in the camp. And I'm just like, why? And then you can send people on missions, but you don't go on the mission with them. They're just like out collecting resources and doing things for you. So there's like a management sim.
It's like Assassin's Creed. Brotherhood had that.
It's bizarre. There's just so much stuff that they've like stuck in here.
It just feels bloated at this point, right?
Yes.
Like, it's like when I think about what I loved about Far Cry 3 and 4, it was like, this is a dense open world that's all about tackling encampments and this cool, interesting story with, and not a deep story, but at least in Far Cry 3, I would say a pretty engaging one, and like, especially that
it wasn't goofy back then, was it? It was at
it
least
was a little
didn't
goofy.
Take itself seriously, but I didn't have a sausage dog with wheels on the back that could have a like rocket launcher attached to his back.
And that's the thing is, right? Like, it feels like it's jumped the shark. And we had a whole episode about that. If you want to go find out what number it was, and I feel like that's really the thing where like
that for me isn't the thing because they did that in 5, and I was fine with it in 5, right? Because we had like cheers and cheeseburger and stuff, and I was like, okay, it's getting a bit sillier. It's taking itself less seriously, and because 4 was a little bit like that. Then they had the one because remember had like all the Shangri-La like drug like out of it things and stuff, and then
but like I didn't hate that because that was like part of Far Cry now at that point, right? It was like, oh, in 3 there's a point where you get drugged or you get you burn down the pot farm, and like having sequences where you weren't sure what was real and what was fake and that kind of thing was something that like was like, okay, like that's part of the formula. But the wackiest stuff was reserved for those moments, or like the Blood Dragon spin-offs or whatever. Yeah, whereas now it's like it just feels like it's jumped the shark in a point where I like you said, like, what's its identity, right? Because like I think Far Cry 5 had the same problem but like it was
Far Cry 5 was even worse because it was in the USA, and it was just this setting makes no sense that there's no police coming to like shut this down.
Yeah, or like nobody like live streamed this somehow, like like it's just like we took down the cell towers. It's like
it's like what, and you were unable to escape Montana? Like there's no routes out by air or by road. Like they've just completely like closed out a valley or something. Like it made no sense.
Yeah,
that you wouldn't be able to get out of there and leave.
There's a reason that the other games have been set in fictional countries, right?
And now we're back to a fictional country, yeah.
Right. And I feel like the whole like really, grim, dark, like religious cult leader character juxtaposed with
it's not that
me and my buddy Peaches the Bear. It's like
right, but that's no different to what we've got now. You've got some like dictator dude who shoots his own kid in front of you, and then like you're walking around with an alligator 2 seconds later.
Yeah, I mean, like that's
it's just like, okay.
Cool. I think that's tough. It's tough to reconcile those two tones, and like I preferred when Far Cry was like overall more serious, and then there were just like characters that provided comedic relief.
Yeah, there'd be like someone on like the radio or something talking to you that would give you that. But
Robbie Ray.
For me, but that's not my issue with the game really. It's the systems they've added. The fact that I've now got to keep track of multiple different ammo types for each gun.
That I found that to be really annoying.
It's so annoying. I've got to get my cell phone out with the cracked screen to like zoom in and figure out, does this person need soft bullets, or does it need like armor piercing rounds, or is it the standard bullets? And then I've got to somehow hope that I've crafted them for the gun that I'm using. And if I run out of bullets in that gun, or I want to swap to a better gun, like someone's got an RPG and there's a helicopter coming in any of the other Far Cry games, I could swap that gun. In Far Cry 6, you can't. You can't just swap your gun while you're out in the wild. You've got to go to like workbench in order to
Yeah.
do it. There's no like shops where you can just buy guns. You have to like find them in the wild in these like crates, which are seemingly just lifted straight from Fortnite supply drops that you have to like steal. And then they've got this whole system of loadouts that they keep wanting me to use, and I'm just like, no, I don't want any of this. I don't want to have to like change my armor on the fly because there's someone with poison all of a sudden come in and it wants me to like switch to that, or I'm going scavenger hunting, so it wants me to switch my armor out for that. And I'm just like, this sucks. You had a great system with the like leveling progression, or they switched over to perk points in Far Cry 5, fine, whatever you want to call it. It worked. It gave me a sense of progression in the game that I work, I get these points, I can spend them on things. You don't really have that in this game. Right at the beginning, I could parachute, I could like airdrop out of a plane, I had the repair, torch, all of that stuff is stuff you acquired over the course of the game in previous Far Cry games. Same with suppressors. You can just make them straight away in this game, whereas you couldn't in previous Far Cry games. And it's just like, what's the point in me playing at this point? Because the loop used to be in Far Cry, and I think that was really what hooked me in Far Cry 2, 3, 4, was you go, you hunt the animals, you get better stuff with the materials you got, you level up your person, you get all the points, you take down the radio towers, and that unlocks like the parts of the map so you can see what you need to do. And then you go take down the outposts. It was really the outposts that were the main things. And once you've taken enough of those down, and done like enough of the like small missions, you could then go take down the bosses, like the mini bosses, all the way up to like the big head honcho dude. And like, I'm so confused as to how I even get to the point where I'm like completing a region in this game, because there's no real clear indicator from what I can tell. The map is just terrible. And like there's like areas it doesn't even want me to go into because I'm too low level. It's so confusing. The whole thing is just so convoluted and complex with
And
all
it's
of this stuff they've
massive.
just
It's
chucked on
so
top.
big. It's like I would rather it be like scaled back and focused more, you know, and like
Yeah,
and it's like then you have like those like the crazy weapons and everything. Like it's like I remember
I haven't
feeling
even reached that point really. Like I haven't got any of I've got
Supremos,
the backpacks, right?
yeah,
With the fucking
rockets.
you press down the two bumpers and it like does the rockets and things. But I remember in Far Cry 5, and I don't know if they're in this, but you could get like special weapons. Like there was one that would like shoot CDs and stuff, and it was really cool. And I don't know if they've made it into Far Cry 6 or not. But there was like really cool stuff like that, and it's seemingly gone. I don't know. It's not gelled with me as much as I wanted it to, as much as I love the other
I
Far
know.
Cry games. And
And like it's
it could
fun.
have been
It's
so
fine.
good.
Like it's fine. It's totally fine. But I love 3 and 4.
Yeah, me too.
And I just
And that was my view, right? It was just like, man, I should have just played Far Cry 3 again on the Steam Deck rather than
yeah.
picking up 6. Like
I
I
had a
really
lot
wanted
more
to try
fun
6.
restarting Far Cry 3 a couple months ago than I did playing Far Cry 6.
And I think I may end up getting to that point where I'm just like, you know what? I've had my taste of this. I'm like 10 hours into the game at this point, and I'm just like, you know what? It's okay. It's something to do while I've got like crap TV on in the background, or while my call is doing something. And it's a nice game. It like really demonstrates the power of the Steam Deck, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a current gen game. I'm running this on ultra high settings with like everything turned up at that solid 30 frames per second. It's super impressive that a little handheld can handle that. But the game itself just leaves a lot to be desired at the moment. And I may come around to it, but at the moment I'm just like, it's telling me all these things to do. Like go back to your camp because you can build out 2 new things. And like I get there and it's just like, actually I don't have the materials to do it. So you've like told me that there's these 2 things, like a fucking hunter's lodge or like a gorilla hideout or something. and they like somehow unlock certain skills. Like I did the gorilla hideout, which unlocked the wingsuit. It's just like, how do these two link up? Like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, it's a shame. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like of the opinion that there's no way for Far Cry to return to form, right? Like, franchises
I think they easily could
take missteps all the time.
Could.
But I also feel like they put out so many of them, it feels like, too, because it's like they do the spin-offs, and it's like...
It's been a while, though, right? Because I don't think there was that, like, spin-off with the twins after Far Cry 5, but that didn't hit well either.
No.
So this is like the second, maybe even the third, if you count Far Cry 5 as a bit of a dud. Far Cry Survival was bad as well. Like, Far Cry Primal, sorry. People didn't really like that because it was like a... back in the day.
Some people really liked it, but it certainly wasn't as popular.
It wasn't Far Cry to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I considered Far Cry to be. And it feels like Ubisoft has had a lot of misses lately. Like, look at the latest Ghost Recon game, for example. They've just, like, ended support for that after about a year. The Division 2, seemingly, like, it fell off the cliff. There was no additional content released for that. Far Cry obviously hasn't hit as well as it should have. It's just... I don't know, they need something to turn it round. And I think the problem is they've got too many games that are too similar that like wires just get crossed. It's just like you can see the influences in this game from other ones. Having played Ghost Recon Wildlands, I can see the influences of that game in this.
I mean, they've also had an issue with talent drain, right? Like, there's obviously been, some pretty high profile conversations around like what the culture is like at Ubisoft, and a lot of people are not happy there and are not being treated well, and you're seeing a lot of talent leave and go somewhere else, and I think that's probably also part of the problem, and like they probably need to slow down on some of these marquee series and let them breathe a little bit more, and
I mean, this one got delayed for almost a year.
Yeah,
it was meant to release in 2020. It got pushed back to late 2021, and I don't think it's a problem that if it had more time to cook, it would have been better.
No.
It's polished as hell.
It's not that the game is poorly made in any way. It's just bloated. I think it's just it didn't have a clear vision of what it was trying to achieve. I don't think
it's like a movie without a good editor, or with a director who just like always gets their own way, and you need someone to come in and just be like, nope, chop that. And I think it's the difference between like old Quentin Tarantino movies like Pulp Fiction, for example, versus some of his newer stuff, which just goes on forever and ever and ever and never ends. And it's because he lost his editor. And I feel like these games need someone to come in and just be like, no, we don't need a camp building. No, we don't need any third person stuff in this game because it's a first person shooter.
Part of the problem, though, too, right, is I feel like with some of these, like, big AAA franchises that just keep coming back and coming back and coming back, there's, like, this war of escalation, right, where it's like, well, the next one has to be even bigger than the last one, and it has to have more features and more. And
I also think it's, like, a case of maybe the developers who are working on it, or the higher-ups, or, I don't know, someone, right? It's just, like... And I could see it happening with the suits, like bringing down the word of like, we've heard that like camp building's like really popular, and like it's marked really well in the focus groups. Can we make sure we get that into this game as well as into the Ghost Recon series, because people really like it? And like then it's just come in way too late. It's tacked on top. And I think that kind of stuff needs to have a sense of purpose in the game, whereas in this it just doesn't. It just feels like, oh, okay, we're just putting these like hub areas in for the sake of it.
Yeah, it feels like there are a lot of features in the game that feel like they are just there for the sake of putting more on top of it.
Yes.
And I think
too much.
The thing that you pointed out, where like you start the game with so many of the powers that you traditionally earn over time, it's like that is to the detriment, because then it's like, okay, well, they still have to give you things, and the stuff they give you is not additive. It's just like more noise, It's you got a rocket backpack. It's like, I don't want that. Why the fuck would I want that?
The only thing I use that for is to take down the helicopters, because I can't buy a fucking rocket launcher because there's no shops in the game, and I've got to go find it out in the wild somewhere. And
That's
I bet I
stupid.
don't get it
You
till
know, it's
late.
like I
I
don't
bet I
want
don't get
that.
it till late in the game because it's probably in one of the areas that's like super high level, and if I go in there, I just get shot dead instantly.
Yeah.
So it's just stupid, and like the enemies are just like bullet sponges at points, because it's just like, oh, we've arbitrarily decided that this enemy is level 12 and you're level 4, so your bullets aren't as effective against a level 12.
Yeah, like I
So
don't
you've just
want
got to
that.
shoot for longer.
You know, like
I hate
I
it.
liked the system where it was just like a shooter, and it's like this guy has armor on, so he takes more shots. Got it. Okay. You know, it's like I don't know, like
Now it's, oh, this guy's got armor on. These bullets aren't really going to work. So while he's shooting at me and I'm in the middle of combat and someone else is throwing grenades, I've got to somehow hold down the L button to bring up the wheel, press Y to swap between, like, I'll click it multiple times to swap to the right bullets that I need, and then somehow shoot him, and then turn around and do the exact same thing for the other guy, because I've got he probably won't be using the armor piercing rounds. The other one will probably be like the soft tissue rounds, and I've got to swap
like,
bullets for that one.
that interrupts the entire flow of what I find fun about Far Cry, right? Like Far Cry was the first game that made me fall in love with the whole like fighting in a base thing, like going in and clearing out an enemy encampment.
I fucking love that. That's my favorite thing to do. Like I redid all of the stuff in Far Cry 5. There was like an outpost master mode, which made it harder.
Yeah.
And I went through and did them all undetected with no alarms. It was so satisfying. In this, it's just like there's like the mini outpost, like the checkpoints where there's like 3 people and an alarm, and it's just like, why? What's the point? And then you have like seemingly there's 2 in each region. It's not enough, and you can't really find them because there's not. I'm not seeing the smoke coming up from them like I do in the previous games. You just have to ride around.
Yeah, and like I loved having the like Rambo ass moments in those games, right? Where it would be like, oh, like I'm hiding in the bush and I'm taking guys out, and then one of them's like, hey, there he is, and it's like, oh shit, and I'm running and I'm like fucking pull out the shotgun and shoot this guy, and then run and stab that guy, and you know, and then you run and duck underneath something, and then you climb up and you jump back out, you know, and like I loved the rhythm of that. Or you'd be like, oh, I'm sneaking up, and then like a tiger comes out and gets you, you know, and like. I feel like,
or a fucking honey badger or a turkey.
I feel like that
something
flow
like
is broken.
Ridiculous.
You know, like with all this bullshit. It's like I don't want to like. Who cares? Like I don't want poison rounds and
that's
shit. Like
thing.
That's not real.
The game. I keep having this fucking psychiatrist radioing in while I'm in the middle of gunplay, and he's like telling me that I need to go relax and I should try fishing. And I'm just like, I know there's a fishing mini game in this game. There was one in the last one. And guess what? I didn't like it in the last one. I thought it was boring. I don't really like fishing games. I don't care about doing it.
I can't think of something I would want to do less in a Far Cry game. In a game that's about fucking fighting guys and like fucking flying helicopters and riding on elephants and shit. Like, what do you think I want to go fishing for?
The only time it was useful was if like I'm fishing because I need to build like a fucking pouch to put more bullets in.
Sure.
And they removed that from Far Cry 5. It's not in Far Cry 6.
So what's
like Far Cry 4 was the last time really that you hunted animals in order to build things and craft things. Whereas in this, you came into the game fully equipped. You're like a part of a guerrilla army which seemingly has access to everything. They've got their own bases, their own like, weapons, and yet you can only go find guns in the wild, and like, they won't give you anything.
That bothers me too when I think about it. Like I like how you feel like kind of a lone wolf.
Yeah, you're the one that's like coming in. You know, it's that like it was always that like white savior. I'm coming in and I'm like, coming to save.
Yeah, and that
day,
part
and
sucks.
Like,
but
that really sucked. But you know, in this one, some positives. I'm playing as a woman, which is great. I really love that they gave me that choice, and I can pick and play as a woman, which was nice. It was refreshing.
Her as well.
And I'm not a white person, which is also great. It's nice. It's a refreshing change. There's queer characters in the game. Also great. Like there's some really good points of progression.
Definitely.
But I don't like the fact that sense of I feel like a hero, which is what I think people came to Far Cry games for, is gone. I used to feel like a hero clearing out the outposts, and everyone was just
I loved I can write a whole fucking essay about why Far Cry 3 is good, because like
You should.
the whole thing about like the white savior shit is like, you're totally right, but like when you think about the way that that game ends and the choice that you're allowed to, if you pick the good guy choice, that's, yeah, but like the whole thing is about how he's not a good guy and he's enjoying like getting fucking blood on his hands, you know, and like that he's like turning into a fucking monster basically and becoming a psychopath. And like I like that because it's very much like, oh, I'm the hero because this is a video game. And then it's like, it does the whole like Undertale thing where it's like, but are you really?
Are you really though?
Are you really a hero though? Or like, you know, it's like I feel like we've gotten so far away from the strength of that like things that are problematic about it aside, right? Which we can also, you know, not to dismiss those things, but more just like there's narrative meat on that bone in a way that like with Danny, it's like she just feels like a person getting swept up in this thing that's already happening, rather than like,
right,
which
she's
I
like
guess is also
who,
true in the other games, but like
it is like, you think about number 4 for example.
There's a whole rebellion that you join.
Yeah, he's going there to find his mother, and you join the rebellion. But Far Cry 2 and 3 weren't that. I've never played Far Cry 1. I know it's the one by Crytek. It's not a Ubisoft game. I've never played it. I know it's a different game from the other Far Cries. But 2 and 3, I know it's just like you've like crash landed on this island and like you've got to try and get off and like save yourself, right? And that was gone. I liked Far Cry 4 though. I thought Pagan Min was a great antagonist. I loved that game.
I think the difference is though, right, that in 4 you were part of a group, but like, and it didn't feel like you were like they were organized, right? Like they were a underground militia that was trying to liberate the country.
They hadn't even taken over a single radio tower. They were trying to get you to help them set up Radio Free Karat. It was like the beginning. You're there on the ground floor. Whereas this, it feels like we came in, I don't know, 2-3 years into this rebellion and this like possible civil war that's going on. And we're just like a tag along. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, you can join our cause.
Yeah, we're just like, we're just like somebody's fucking errand person, you know, like it's just like there's a boss that we work for and there's already an organization, and like you said, they have all these bases and power and they already know, like I just feel like it's like, all right,
if you weren't here, it wouldn't. You're just like a tiny little cog.
You feel like a blunt instrument that's being directed, right? Where it's like, go here and kill all these guys for us. It's like, all right, yeah, shit, whatever. Whereas like
some of the quests are, it's like kill all the soldiers. It's just like, okay, cool.
Whereas like in 3 and 4, right? Like your character has skin in the game in a way where it's like, well, all my friends are captured and gonna be fucking ransomed or killed, and I'm gonna die on this fucking island, or I, you know, came to spread my mom's ashes, and now I'm swept up in this shit, and I'm gonna die in this country I've never been to. I just want to go home, right? Like, whereas like her whole thing is like she doesn't even want to be. She was trying to leave, and now it's like now she's supposed to like be part of this rebellion and liberate the country and like all these things that like she never wanted to do. You know, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, she's like phoning it in. She's just like, okay, fine, I guess.
And she's like, she was like in the military or whatever, right? Like they say like, oh, you're really tough and you know how to fight, and like the whole point is supposed to be that you're like a fucking chump, you know, that can't.
Like she said like that they like, what, I can't. Is it consigned? Like she got like signed up by the country to join the military, right?
Yeah, conscripted.
Conscripted. She was conscripted rather than like voluntarily. Oh my god, I can't even speak. Voluntarily joining the army. So it's just like she didn't even want to do that. She didn't want to fight.
She feels like a character who has like very little agency.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just someone, and because of that, you sort of feel like, well, if I'm not here, this would all carry on anyway, and they'd probably win or they would lose, and I'm not really helping the cause all that much.
I mean,
I
I
just
think
feel
that's
like a somebody.
you will eventually, I'm sure, be like, oh, well, I'm the one who turned the tide and I'm the most powerful person. It's like, okay, but like, I don't know. It just, for whatever reason, I feel like it just doesn't hit the same, and like.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't. And I think there's those systems and the story and the setting. It's a combination of like bad decisions
And we're
have
like
led
multiple
to Far
games in a
Cry
row
6.
now where I felt that way. And it's like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm not excited for 7 now. Like, am I?
No, I'm just like, oh, okay. I'll see how it goes. I'll check the Metacritic
Yeah.
scores and the reviews when it comes out, and then
Fingers
I'll make a
crossed,
decision.
but
I picked this up for 20 quid and I'm still disappointed. I would have been extremely disappointed if I bought this for 70.
yeah,
I'll
I also bought it on sale and I regret buying it because it's like I didn't need to play this. I bought it to kill time until like Horizon came out or whatever, and it's like I should have just waited or played Far Cry 3.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's I think our review really. If you were going to play Far Cry 6, don't bother. Go play Far Cry 3 because it's a significantly better game. 3 or 4 are the best games in the series. I would recommend checking those 2 out.
Yeah, I don't know. And like I said, it's fine. Like if you played those games to death and you want to play something new, like it's not bad, but it's also not good. It's fine. It's okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into our talking point for the week, which is cheat codes. So this was an idea that Steve had floated out a couple weeks ago where it's like, cheat codes, I feel like were such a prevalent thing back in the day when we were younger. Like most games had some kind of cheats or something. And there was like a real community around it. Like I remember one of the first websites that I frequented online was this website called cheatcodecentral.com. And it was like they had like a library that you could go through of all the different consoles, and then they had it by game and they'd have all the cheats, but then they also had like a message board and like they would have like strategy guides and stuff like that for games that didn't have cheats. And I had like a binder, a little Pokemon binder where I would print out cheat codes and then 3-hole punch them and stick them in my binder.
You were a real nerd.
Oh yeah. And I had them, and I had tabs, so I had them in alphabetical order. So I could
friends come over and you're just like, hold on. Let me get my file of facts out and find out exactly which cheat I need to use today.
Yep. And like Animal Crossing folks will remember in the original game, you could go to Tom Nook and there was like a code system where you could put in a code and you would get specific items. And they would like come out in like Nintendo Power and stuff like that. And that was like, I think, how you were supposed to get them. And Cheat CC just had the whole list. And you could just be like,
oh my God,
I'm going to get every NES game. And like, I had like every crazy item, because I found this cheat list and just shit like that, It was No, go ahead.
That for me was how I used to get my cheat codes. I distinctly remember, and I can't remember what magazines they were, but it would be like you'd have like the reviews and like the latest games and like previews of what was coming out and stuff, and then you get to the back and there was like a few pages of like new games that had recently come out like that last couple of months, and it would have like the cheat codes for them, and like you would like look down and you'd be like, oh, I can like put this combination of buttons and things in, and I would get them. But then we also did get stuff from the internet. I can't for the life of me remember the website, and I really hope my dad can remember because I would love to know. But it was the same place we used to get a lot of the like walkthroughs with the typewriter font that we would like print out, and you had the same thing with the cheat codes. It was so fun, and just finding all of those was really cool. But then in addition to that, it was like finding glitches in games as well was like another thing that you could use to your advantage. And like when you would find one, it was always like a big thing. And I only ever found one that I put to very, very good use, which was The Sims on the PlayStation 2. And I don't know if it was like if it was just like in the first build or whatever, but when you sold a wall, in The Sims 2, if you held down the button that was to like make the wall and you just slammed R1, I think it was, to sell, you could sell that same piece of wall a million times, just as much as you wanted. So you'd
Whoa.
make like we'd make one big piece of wall, we'd put the most expensive wallpaper on it, and then we'd just sit there and fucking slam the button so we can make like the biggest house possible with all of our money that
Yep.
we'd got without having to go to work or anything. It was great.
I remember in speaking of The Sims, there was like the Rosebud cheat on PC,
Yes,
and
the
you could just
rosebud cheap
print money
with the
you know?
semicolon, exclamation mark. Just do it a million times.
Yep. Yeah.
There were so many cheats for The Sims. There was always that like myth of the cheat that I don't think ever existed to remove the blur so that you could see the Sims naked. I remember like everyone in school talking about this, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you know, you can make it so you can see them like in bed or see them in the shower or whatever. It's just like, no, you couldn't. And even if you could, there'd be nothing underneath the blur anyway. It was just a thing.
You brought up glitches, and I think for me, there's one glitch that reigns supreme above all else. It looms in the memory of, I think, most fans of the game. And Tyler Olson wrote in about this one of our Patreon supporters, and said, I had a Game Shark that I used to catch one of my favorite glitches of all time, Missing No. Or Missingo, whatever, but it's Missing No. And
And that's like a missing number Pokemon, right?
Yeah, so I'm trying to show the picture here. It's a little bit out of frame, but you know, you can see the top of it. It was a famous glitch that you would activate by there was like a whole process that you had to go through, basically, where you would go, and here I'll actually pull up the footage. You'd go to the old man in Viridian City and have him do the Weedle catch, and then you could go to the Cinnabar Island and swim up and down the coast. And Missing No was a like piece of junk code, basically, that they had used as like a placeholder in the decks, because I think there was originally supposed to be a few more Pokemon that didn't make the cut, and like it's just like junk data, and doing this random sequence of events like causes this glitch. And the interesting thing about it, aside from the fact that it happens at all, is you could use it in two really notable ways. If you went whatever space you had been in on the map before you flew to Viridian and talked to the old man, Pokemon from that area would show up on Cinnabar Island. But they would be really, really high level. Sometimes they would be glitched to be like over level 100. It was like all this weird stuff. And so you could take advantage of that and like catch super rare Pokemon, or Pokemon that you were only supposed to be able to catch once. You could catch like, Mewtwo if you went to like, the Cerulean Cave, and you could catch multiples of them. And there's all these weird things where like which Pokemon show up can also be impacted by like what your name is in the game, and like just all this weird
How
shit.
did people find this stuff out? Was this like people having like cracked the ROM or something, and they like
And I
through
think
the source code and figured it all out?
and I think experimenting with it for years and years and years,
Because I imagine some of this stuff didn't come out for a long time after the game came out.
At least to my knowledge, right? But it's the thing where like in the early days of the internet, right? Like it was a thing that you'd find, or you'd swap stories, or you'd read about it. Like I learned about this from a friend who was my neighbor,
That's what I miss, right? Is that sense of like, oh, mystery, right? Because even now, I think about games like Elden Ring, for example, and Breath of the Wild, where there is that sense of a feeling that it's just like, oh, I'm the first one that's discovered this. No one else would have seen this secret. It's just like, no, someone probably has seen it and posted a video online, and it's been shared around like a million times already. Whereas back then, you had no real proof, no real evidence, unless you had the cartridge with the glitch that had happened on it at the time.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't take a picture on your mobile phone because that didn't exist. You couldn't take a video or a screen capture or anything because that didn't exist. You just had that sense of mythology around certain cheats and certain glitches as to like, is this even real? Did this actually happen?
And there's so many really weird things about Missing No that's really interesting. Like its type is bird type, which is not a type of Pokemon. It knows 3 attacks. It knows Water Gun twice, and then Sky Attack That doesn't make any sense. It
Yeah,
causes
it must have been like a leftover thing.
It
Like,
causes
'cause
all these
I
weird
bet a bird
glitches.
type was what they called air type, right? Before
Flying,
probably
yeah.
flying. Yeah.
But it causes all these weird glitches where like it messes up the like Hall of Fame for like the Elite Four and stuff. Like it's very, very strange. But the other thing that it does is allow you to duplicate items, which was the main reason that you would do it. So whatever was the 6th item in your inventory, you'd get like 100 of them. So like you could take like rare candies or the Master Ball and make infinite, if you just kept doing it. Which was a huge thing in those games because those were limited resource. The Master Ball is always a limited resource, but rare candy, there's only like, 10 of them in the game. So if you use them all, they're gone, right? So like you could use that to like quickly level Pokemon, and it was very, very valuable.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wonder how many of those Pokemon made it all the way through to like Pokemon Bank, Pokemon Home.
You couldn't,
and are now sat in people's Pokemon.
Well, you couldn't with that because from Gen 1 and 2, those are the only games that there was no way to move to the next generation. Okay. From Gen 3 on, you've been able to push them forward.
Right, okay.
I don't know. You can probably do it in the 3DS ports where like maybe you can...
I wonder if Missing No got taken out of it though.
Maybe. Probably. I don't know. That's a good question though. That would be fucked up though. It's like that's so core to the experience. It was part of the game.
That's like
it's
a
jank,
thing. Yeah.
It's like, but it's part of it. But yeah, that's one that like definitely I think stands out to me. But on the Pokemon note, I have another funny one. And this comment from Zaid, one of our Patreon producers, is a good inroad to it. So Zaid said, "Oh, I had an action replay for my DS. I mainly used it after I had beaten Pokemon Diamond so I could get all the event Pokemon you had to go to like a store like GameStop to get." And that was definitely one that I took advantage of when I was in high school around the time that Gen 4 came out and was current. That was when all my friends and I had really gotten serious into competitive Pokemon and like were EV breeding or IV breeding and EV training and like, doing tournaments and stuff.
When you told me the EV thing before, I thought you were on about like the Pokemon EV, but yes. You're not. You're on about EV.
Effort values. Yes.
Yeah.
And me and all my buddies, because we had like a league basically where like we had, I forget how many people were in the group that were actually serious about playing, but maybe like 7 or 8 of us. And each of us had multiple, competitive teams, but we also had a tournament that we did twice, I think, where each of us had a type that we picked. So like I picked water, somebody else picks dragon, somebody else has normal, and we all made a competitive team that was monotype, and then we did a monotype like bracket tournament to see who had the best team. And that squad, a couple of us, like the 4 of us that were like the most serious, 4 or 5 of us, we used to get together and like play like every week, and we were always doing stuff. We went to a GameStop and we all pitched in like $5 each and bought an action replay. And we used it so that we could clone all of our Pokemon so that each of us could have the same Pokemon that each other had that we had all worked on making.
So you could like train against them?
So that we could do, but like also so we would have the tools that like each other had to like use against other people, because it was like really hard to make Pokemon back then. It would take a really long time. So like if I made a version of a Vaporeon that was competitively valuable and it was different than the one that you had made, we could trade and we'd both have 2 versions that we could viably use but not have to make 2 of them, and like things like that. But also we would make clones so that we could trade them online and not have to get rid of our Pokemon. Because we used to go on the Cerebi boards and battle strangers online and would like trade with people and would be like, oh, like these are the Pokemon that we've been breeding that we can trade. Here's all the level 100 Pokemon we have with their move sets, and this is their IV and EV spreads. And we would just like go in the chat rooms and like post stuff and like set up trades. And we got this action replay so that we could clone all of our shit, trade it away, keep our stuff, and just keep amassing this larger and larger group of competitively viable Pokemon. and we called ourselves the Poke Mafia.
Oh
It
god.
was like, we're out here wheeling and dealing, you know?
But you use yours like you use cheats for actually useful things. For me, it was just to, like, usually goof around. Like, I was thinking about what I used them for. Sims, for example.
Sure.
I don't know what it was about the fucking house builder in that game. And like my aspirations of being an architect, even though every house I made looked like this exactly the fucking same. But I would just want loads of money so I could like build the best houses. And like it was all I wanted to. I didn't care about this whole life sim and them going to work and doing this and that. I just wanted them to be rich fuckers and stay at home and swim in the pool all day long and like cook burgers on the barbecue. That's all I wanted them to do. And then Age of Empires did not care less about doing any of the campaigns or anything. I just wanted to play POW or type how do you turn this on and have a baby on a tricycle or a fucking Viper, like a Dodge Viper,
The army of
car, and
cars,
just
yeah.
like just fucking run around and like shoot everyone and take them all down. It's just like ha ha ha! Look at me with my modern technology. I can just fucking shoot you with my car that spins around and like fires bullets. Or there was that little army dude with the laser gun as well that would like kill anything with one shot. It would just like vaporize
Oh
them.
my god, you just reminded me of a game I haven't thought about in years. It was one of those army men games. I think it was called like Sarge's Heroes or something, and I had that on PC, and I remember that had a ton of cheats like that. And you could make like a magnifying glass and like melt the other army men, or you could get like a spray paint bottle of hairspray and like a lighter and burn them and stuff. And yeah, I forgot about that.
Basically, you could be a psycho.
Yeah. Basically.
I used to love stuff like that. It was like the time for the developers to have a bit of fun. Like they made their serious game, Age of Empires, or historical, or, you know, army battles, blah, blah, blah. And then it's just like, okay, well, let's put a fucking spaceman in or a baby on a tricycle and let's just have some goofs.
There's
And
always
it was always that like thing, and I don't know if it's true that like cheats were put in the games for QA testers, and that's why they existed. And like now, obviously, they have better tools that they don't need cheat codes to like type
that's probably right.
R1,
I mean, yeah.
L2, square. Because
Makes
I could
sense.
imagine it, right? You don't, as a QA tester, you don't want to be having to accumulate all of this money in order to be able to test this one specific thing. So you just type Rosebud semicolon exclamation mark and just like get shitloads of it.
Well, and especially with when you think about things where it's like, oh, like you could lose progress and stuff like that, and like, you know, what are you gonna like replay an entire game so you can replicate 1 second of it that you need to test or whatever, right? Like it's at a certain point, you know, that just becomes ridiculous. So yeah, that probably makes sense, you know. But we had a comment here from that doc guy, one of our Patreon producers, who said, my best memories were going on Cheat CC as a kid to find glitches and bugs for Zelda or other stuff like that. Shout out to Cheat CC, of course. I wanted to bring this up because one of the things that I remember while we're like kind of talking about like the devices and stuff is I remember my best friend growing up had a Game Shark for the N64. And
nice.
Found out about this crazy glitch. Not even a glitch. It's like a thing that exists in Ocarina of Time, and I have it up on screen right now for the folks watching on YouTube, where the R-Wing from Star Fox is in the code of Ocarina of Time, and they used it to test how one of the flying enemies would work. And if you patch in this code, there's an animation that plays of the R-Wing flying into the map, and then it starts shooting you. And
oh shit, that's so cool.
Yeah, and you can fight it, and I just showing it right now. Link hits it with the boomerang, and it like comes out of the sky and crashes and burns and everything. It's awesome. It's so cool. Yeah,
so that's another example of like it being in for testers. Then like they were testing out
how a feature worked,
checked it in, and how it would work.
Yeah. And I loved stuff like that. And then Doc said, I fell for a fake one in Kirby Air Ride that promised you'd unlock the witch enemy as a playable character if you did a free run play session for 4 hours nonstop. Schoolyard rumors like that were the best and still cannot be beat.
I agree with the schoolyard rumors can't be beat. I did not believe my friend Sean, and he would convince me. They like could not convince me that there was a skeleton key in Oblivion. And of course, there is a skeleton key in Oblivion. I was like, "There's no way they'd add that to the game," but they did, and it was on the Elder Scrolls. It was on the Elder Scrolls wiki, and I found it, and it's like it makes that game. It's just like fuck yes, I haven't got to do the fucking lock picking mini game every like 2 seconds anymore. I can just like slam X to like unlock the door. It was great, but yeah, Schoolyard Rumors, I agree, cannot be beaten. It was the best way to share information.
I loved those, and like because like some of them were real, and you'd be like, oh whoa, like this actually works, you know, like that was always fun. But yeah, I remember like one of the big ones that I remember talking about that was definitely fake was in Pokemon Red and Blue. There is a section of the game when you're in Cerulean City where you have to go up past the Nugget Bridge, and you go and meet Bill, who's the guy who invented the PCs. And he behind his house, there's like this interesting there's like a gap, right? And it looks like he has a backyard or something that you could go to. And you're not ever able to go in it. But there was this rumor that it was like, there's this thing called Bill's Garden that you can go in if you complete the Pokedex, and you can go in there and there's new Pokemon for you to catch. And it's like, whoa, like, no way, you know? And it's like, no way. That's fake. And like, there's another thing like that in Vermilion, where by the SSN, there's water. And if you wait until you get surfed, there's like a way you can like sequence break the game, basically. If you have someone trade you a Pokemon that you need to, it doesn't matter. There's a way to do it where you can have surf and go and surf around in this area, or you can like, you know, cheat and like shadow walk or something. And there's like a truck on the side, like this truck sprite. And it's the only car sprite in the entire game. And people were like, oh, if you use strength on that, you can push it and then you'll fight Mew. Also not real, but it was a cool story. There is a glitch that you can do to get Mew, though. It's weird, elaborate thing you have to do, but I've done it and it definitely works.
Oh, see, I love that. And like this whole series of events you have to assemble together in order to get anything. Like that reminds me of the only time I can remember me and my dad like really struggling to enter a cheat code. I think it was in Tomb Raider 4, and it is the one set in Egypt, and we're like trying to get some health packs, some first aid kits, because we'd fucked up and we didn't have any, and like we really needed some because our health was low. And it's like, it was this most ridiculous thing. It's like you've got to look north, do a somersault backwards, take 2 steps to the left, press L2, R2, and like
remember that.
It was ridiculous. And then she would go like, aha, and like a fucking pack would be in her inventory. But like finding the specific point and like making sure you're facing north.
I remember my friend struggling to do that. Move. Yeah.
Oh God, it's horrendous.
That's so
absolutely
funny.
Horrendous.
Yeah, holy shit. I haven't thought about that. Because I was never a Tomb Raider guy, but my buddy growing up was a big Tomb Raider fan, and I remember watching him trying to do that, because there's like that fight with like a tiger or something in one of those games, and I remember he was like struggling and he needed the health pack, and we looked up the cheat for it. That's crazy. The resources thing makes me think of what I think of as like one of the most iconic for sure, which is the cheat codes in like GTA. And that's
which are still in there to this day, right? GTA 5 is one of those few games that still has cheat codes, like along with the Lego games. They're about the only 2 games I can really think of in modern day that have cheat codes built in.
Yeah, and it's like they're definitely like, now they're like a little bit more formalized. Like you can like put them in the phone, and stuff, yeah. And like that'll give you
it's like, here's a car that comes from the sky.
Yeah, but like I remember, like they had all the, there was like the weapon ones and stuff, and
remember the anti-gravity one as well, where everything would be like floating.
Yeah, and you could like fly the cars, or you could like have the tank that you could spawn, and you could turn the thing around and shoot, and it would fly up like a rocket, basically. And then there's like the like raising wanted level cheats and like all that stuff. That was like the way I played GTA, right? Where it was like my friends and I would pull it out, you know, and like maybe they had engaged with the story or whatever in their own time, but like when we played together, it would be okay, pull out the controller, put in whatever cheats you're gonna put in, and then play until you die. How long can you survive, right? And like I swear to God, of every cheat code, this is the one that I have the most muscle memory for, of the R2, R2, L1, R2, left, down, right, up, left, down, right, up, R2, R2, L1, R1, left, down, right, up, left, down, right, up. Like, it's there, you know? And those are still the same cheats. They still work. It's the same, you know, combinations for most of them these days.
We spoke about that code because I don't really have anything. My lineage with video games starts with computers. Like it's very different to most people my age when they started on consoles. But so mine are like writing things into boxes like Rosebud or Coinage or Marco Polo, that kind of stuff. But I don't ever remember typing the Konami code, which is the most famous cheat code of all time. I don't ever remember typing it into a video game.
We're too young, I think. You know?
Yeah, you think it was like NES, SNES era?
Yeah. Like, cause Konami games were not as relevant when we were young.
No, it was like Metal Gear Solid and
Castlevania, but
and,
but it's like even those games, like I was too young for them, right? Like when they were like Symphony of the Night, Metal Gear Solid, and stuff. Like those were like adult,
and stuff like Silent Hill, for example. You wouldn't be putting like codes into that, I don't think, to cheat. Really,
probably not.
They might exist. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure they do, but you know, I don't know.
I don't remember any for like Resident Evil, but then I don't remember looking up.
I think of more stuff like on like the PS1 and like PS2 era. There was a lot of like stuff like big head mode and you know
it was goofy stuff,
or like you know sometimes it would be something that was like that would really impact gameplay in an interesting way. Like one of the other ones that I pulled up footage for was the moon gravity in Tony Hawk, which is like the thing in in GTA where it would just be like your airtime is like fucking ridiculous and you can like do a 900 just from doing an ollie off the ground and like you know it's like I'm watch somebody just do an ollie and do a 720, you know, like no trouble. Those kinds of things were like fun and just silly because like it would allow you to play the game in a way that you couldn't normally, and you know I like things like that. Like those were always fun things, especially when you were like younger and like not good at games or not as good, right? Like it would give you new ways to find fun even if you were limited in your skill set or something like that, you know?
Stuff like that, I think you're right, was usually like a party piece, right? Someone would come over and they'd be like, oh, I've heard about this new cheat code, let's try it out. And you would all try it together and like laugh at how goofy it was that all of a sudden everyone's got ginormous heads or you can do these crazy tricks that you couldn't do before.
Yeah.
But and I think there's like two categories, and the other one are just genuinely useful cheat codes. Like reducing your wanted level in GTA is a genuinely useful thing. It helps you in the game.
Yeah, or like there was like the health cheat that you could do to like not die or like fix your car or like something like that, you know? And like those things are cool. But I think for me, right, like the things that I loved the most in GTA were like the gravity or like there was the one where you could make the cars drive on water and then you could like drive, you know, you could be flying and then you'd land in the ocean, you drive to the other islands and like it would just totally change the way you interacted with the world, you know? It's like, oh, I have superpowers all of a sudden. This is crazy, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like it was fun to like remove those limitations, you know? But I also really liked how you'd get the ones that would like unlock extra content and stuff. Like one of the ones I always remember is in Crash Team Racing. There were a few characters that you could only unlock with cheat codes. Like one of them,
I didn't know that.
It was Penta Penguin, and like he was one of my favorite characters to play as. And it was
why?
Like, I don't know. I don't know why he didn't make it to
do you think it was maybe like a Nintendo Power situation, like with Animal Crossing, that they were gonna keep it behind a paywall, and you would get the code if you went to like a specific event or something.
I don't know.
Or maybe he just didn't make the cut, and it was just like,
Yeah, and he
okay,
was like
rather than not having him
underdeveloped or
here.
something. But like he works. He's a
Yeah.
fully usable character. You can use him in the story mode and everything, I think. And
Is he in the remake?
yeah,
Wow.
it's just weird.
Still need a cheat code in the remake?
I don't know. You might. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
It'd be fun if they kept it so you need a cheat code in the remake.
And I think there's 2 characters that you get, but I liked him, so I never really cared too much about the other ones. But yeah, like just stuff like that was cool. It's like, oh whoa, like I would have friends come over and be like, oh yeah, I have a whole character that you don't have, and it's like, what? Like how does that? Like that's not a thing, you know? Like
did you tell them? How
yeah,
you did it,
yeah. I would
it
be like, look at this,
secret?
like here, take the code, like you know. That's always been my. That's why I do a podcast, right? It's just like I'm. Oh, look at this thing. Share this interest with me.
Some people though, kind of keep it to themselves, don't they? They're just like,
oh yeah,
no, I'm just gonna.
I'm not that type of guy.
keep
I'm not a
stuff.
gatekeeper. You know, like I'm a gate opener. You know.
So I looked up cheats for Resident Evil, and there weren't any. It's just like glitches and stuff that allowed you to get stuff. Like that was the other thing that Doc referenced, and it's like glitches were another way that you would kind of get it, but I don't really consider them cheats. Cheats, I think, is something that was intentionally there, or that you could, I guess. Game Shock, for example, is cheating, but really that's like modifying the code, isn't it? They would like inject things and like
action replay
is
the same thing.
Yeah, it's like if you knew that you wanted more lives in, say, Sonic, for example, you could just like add more.
I use that a lot on. And I know we're going to do an episode about emulators down the line, but that was something I did a lot when I got into Game Boy emulation, where I was like, they had a built-in action replay in the GBA emulator, Visual Boy, and I would like use that in like I was playing like Pokemon, like Fire Red and Leaf Green, and there were like Pokemon in the decks that you can't get in the game. You could only get from like trading from other games and stuff, and I would be like, oh, like I'm going to input the code so that the next Pokemon I encounter is this Pokemon so that I can use it. Or like, you know, oh, I can put in this code and I can change my sprite so I can play the whole game as like Misty or Brock or whatever, right? Or like whatever, you know? And I liked doing that stuff. That was really fun, you know? And that's more like modding, but like, you know, you're it's cheats, right? Like that's what you're doing. You're fucking around with codes. And yeah, I found that stuff to be like really interesting, and it's fun. It's a fun way to like breathe new life into a game and be like, oh, I can beat this game with a team of Pokemon I'm not supposed to be able to, you know, and things like that.
I think that's why it was great when we were kids, because it would give a bit of longevity to a game when maybe you didn't have as many as you can get as adults. But for me, though, the codes that are intentionally put in there by developers are always more interesting. And the reasons that they're there and the goofy stuff that they add, like the goofy stuff for me is way more fun than being able to have infinite lives or be invincible, like the anti-gravity stuff, all of that stuff, the big heads. It was always so fun to see what they were putting. Like, who the fuck decided to put a baby on a trike in Age of Empires? Like, why is that a thing?
I don't know,
but it's there and it's really cool, and it's there in all of the remakes as well, because it's a piece of gaming history.
That reminds me too of the Gandhi glitch in Civilization that's really funny, where like if you accidentally, there's like, I forget how it works, but there's this thing where like if you do a certain thing, there's a value that creates because they set Gandhi's like you know, I forget the name of the stat, but it's essentially the desire to wage war.
Nuclear Gandhi, is that the one you're on?
Yes, yeah. And it's like if you do a certain thing, it puts a modifier on him that should make it -1 instead of 0, but the numbers don't account for negative numbers, so it actually defaults to like 99, and it makes him like super aggressive and like nukes the world or whatever. And it's like, just like, I love when like weird glitches like that like take on a life of their own and become part of the game and part of the lore and, you know, the history of it.
It's really cool. I can imagine that that's used as an example of like integer overflow in programming, which is like when mileage in a car ticks over to like 0 because you've done like 1,000,000 miles or something, so like ticks back over to 0.
Yeah.
It's the same as that. Like memory can only hold a certain number, so when it gets to like 999, it ticks over to 0. There's a glitch like that that I got warned about when playing Earthbound, which is don't level up too much, because if you get to level 99, when you go to 100, it actually levels you back to level 1 because it doesn't go above level
No,
99.
really? Oh
Yeah.
my god, that's crazy.
So then the game's impossible to finish when because you'll just be back to level 1 and you're in these really high areas.
That's insane. You know what's funny? Another thing you can do that I was just thinking of with the missing no thing, it reminds me of that, is like when the Pokemon glitch and they're over level 100, you can feed them rare candies and like keep raising their level, but then as soon as you use them, it goes back to level 100.
Oh, okay.
It's so
But
weird.
you can use them? Or,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And like
wow.
I think their stats keep going up, so you can like artificially inflate their stats to a point they should not hit, and like weird things like that. But
So they're just stupidly overpowered, but it always looks like they're level 100.
yeah, it's crazy. So we have a couple more comments. This one comes from Timberwolf, who wrote in and said, I don't have specific codes, but I have a story. Without putting in any cheat codes to the game, my brother and I noticed our Mega Man X game files on a specific memory card would start new games with the secret armor and max health / items. To this day, I don't know what it was. Oh, and yes, we had a Game Genie for our Sega Genesis. Fucking
That's so
Game
weird.
Genie.
I've never had anything like that.
I know, that's crazy. I wonder what it was. Like, I wonder if there was like a new game
Maybe
plus.
it's like specific memory cards. Or,
Oh,
or
yeah.
maybe it just like glitched out like on that memory card or something, and it just was just like, here you go. When you save to this, it like gives you this thing.
It's
I
weird.
don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I wonder what the story is there.
Yeah, the history of the Game Genie is really interesting as well. I think there was a video by Gaming Historian on
Yes.
YouTube as well, which was really interesting about all about the Game Genie and then the lineage to Game Shock, Daytale, Action Replay, all of that stuff is well worth checking out.
Absolutely. It's interesting that doesn't exist anymore. Like, I wonder why.
Right. It's not possible anymore, I don't think. Because of the levels of security on the games, you just cannot access the memory, which is what it needed to do. It would interrupt the memory and access the RAM, but now you just can't do it.
Shame.
Without hacked or rooted console, there's no way you could do it. Like you can do it. Like I've seen those on Switch, for example. Like people put different sprites and things into different games when they've hacked their Switch and been able to do all sorts of cool stuff. But you just can't do it without access to the system level. And there was like no security back in those days. It was never even a factor that they considered. It was like the pre-internet era, right? You didn't have to worry about people cheating or anything like that. It's just like, who cares?
So interesting. I've thought about hacking my old Switch so I can do weird, wacky stuff like
content.
that. Yeah, just like make weird content. Because there's people who put they've created custom villagers and stuff like that for Animal Crossing. And it's like it'd be fun to
yeah, it would be really cool.
Yeah,
you should get you and Sarah in there, custom villagers. You know, get you in the wedding outfits and stuff. Would have been awesome.
Wait until you see our cake topper, buddy.
Oh my god.
So this next one comes from Makahula, who said, my first console was the Mega Drive / Genesis, but I never knew cheat codes existed. There was this Bruce Willis game, Apocalypse, on PS1, and I had a love-hate relationship with until I discovered invincibility and weapon unlock cheat codes in a Game Pro a friend brought to school. I eventually got so good in this game that I finally managed to beat it without cheats. There are many games out now where you can buy in-game currency and or stat boosts. Maybe that's why there are no cheat codes anymore. I don't know. And I mean, I think, Steve, you just explained there's the practical reason technologically why things like Game Shark and whatever, and Action Replay or whatever don't exist anymore. But I think in general, I think Wakahula's onto something, and another one of our listeners, Spring-Heeled Rick, seems to agree.
Well, can you just on that, like you can imagine, for example, right, the DLC for Far Cry, some of the weird stuff like the zombies on Mars, for example, like that could have been a cheat. It could have been like, oh, let's bring zombies into the game, whereas now it is like, oh, we've got this goofy idea that we've been fucking around with after hours when we're just kicking back.
Now you can turn it into a product because there's the delivery system for that.
Into a product,
Yeah.
Yeah, or the majority of games are online. They don't want to add cheats in. And I think a lot of those stuff, like we spoke about, was probably in there for QA testers, and it got made public. and they don't need to do that anymore. The tools for testing have just progressed so much more that we have states and things, and they can just skip specific points and stuff. So I think a lot of the necessity for cheats went away, and with that they just stopped bothering.
Yeah, except for, like you said, there are the rare games that keep it up, but yeah, it's definitely not as common. But Spring Hill Rick wrote in and said, maybe the lack of cheat codes comes from how DLC has become a lot more prevalent, as well as preserving the playtime somewhat. This still doesn't stop speedrunners from finding bugs and exploits, which is, I mean, there's certainly still plenty of ways you can kind of cheese.
Like someone beat Elden Ring in 20 minutes because you can get an exploit that like shoots you over to the map and gets you to the final enemy.
There you go, right? Yeah, so that stuff always exists.
Crazy.
As for favorite cheat codes, the Twisted Metal cheat codes across all games were fun as hell, as well as all weapons being unlocked in the GTA series. Then again, when playing a game like Saints Row, totally unneeded, and I do have an appreciation for how these cheats are instead introduced as secrets or obscure side missions to get a hold of. It takes advantage of achievements rather than a quick fix from pay to win, etc.
Yeah, I can understand that. I looked up that Apocalypse game, by the way. It's by Neversoft. The engine was reworked and used for Tony Hawk. It's the precursor to Tony Hawk.
Oh my god, wait, that actually reminds me. I'm pretty sure they built the Spider-Man game in that same engine. But the Spider-Man game that Neversoft made on the PS1 also had some of my favorite cheat codes, because there were a bunch of cheat codes you could use that would unlock new costumes and stuff that I don't think you could get in the game. Maybe you could, and I'm just misremembering, but I used cheat codes because I was a child. And you'd get there was all these really cool deep cut comic book alternate costumes for Spider-Man, like when he was in the Captain Universe costume. And then there's the Amazing Bagman, which is from this random issue where Spider-Man teams up with the Fantastic Four, and he doesn't have his costume, so he puts on a Fantastic Four costume and literally puts a paper bag over his head, and they put that in the game. God. Just random ass deep cuts, because there's the regular stuff you'd think about, like the black suit and all that kind of stuff, but they really went for the deep cuts in that one too. Shout out to Neversoft, man! What a great studio. Rest in peace.
I really want us to stream this game. It sounds so fucking ridiculous. A brilliant evil scientist named the Reverend has created a powerful theocracy based on the idea of rapidly approaching apocalypse. He uses his expertise to create 4 powerful horsemen of the apocalypse: war, plague, beast, and death, in order to ensure this comes to pass. His former colleague, Trey Kincaid, voiced by Bruce Willis, is the only man with the know-how to stop the Reverend, but he's locked up in a jail and must escape in order to save the world.
Oh my god, that's so fucking funny.
Apparently it was one of the first games to use cyber scanning and motion capture to put Bruce Willis's likeness in the game, and it still looks like a PS1 game, so I don't think it was really necessary. They've got 4 polygons to make Bruce Willis's face.
Wait, Gun was a Neversoft game?
They made some out there games.
Oh man. Rest in peace.
It's we make these, and then we did Tony Hawk, and then we did Guitar Hero, and then we're just a Call of Duty support studio.
And then now they're gone. Thanks, Activision. Worst company in gaming. I stand by it. All right, Steve, any other cheat codes you want to shout out before we wrap it up here?
Not really, no. I think that's pretty much all I can remember. I think there was some. I had this Action Man PS1 game when I was a kid, and I really want to revisit it at some point.
Action Man?
It was a top-down GTA ripoff where you played Action Man, and he would go out in missions in his Action Man car, and he would go around. Do you know who Action Man is? It's basically it's a plastic figure doll like G.I. Joe, and it's he had his own video game. I think
so. He's a ripoff G.I. Joe who had a ripoff GTA game, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I loved that game. It was so good.
You a big Action Man fan?
I was an Action Man fan. I had a load of Action Men. We used to throw them out of the landing window with like his parachute on. The parachute would never open. And you just hear the plastic hit the floor outside, and then me and my brother would rush downstairs to go see if he'd. I don't know why we thought we'd be able to get outside quick enough to be able to see him like come down slowly in his parachute. We never did. Like,
one of you should have been downstairs to watch.
I know, right?
Kids are dumb.
Yeah, I had like a red Action Man car, and I used to build them like houses to live in out of Kinects. That was my childhood. Yeah.
Shout out. All right. That's cool. Is Action Man a British thing? I am not familiar with Action Man.
It must be then. I thought Action Man was a thing. Action Man, yeah, must be like a British thing. Originally produced in the UK and Australia.
There we go.
Apparently.
Shout out to Action Man.
It's a licensed copy of Hasbro's movable fighting man G.I. Joe. So he's not a ripoff. He's like our version of G.I. Joe. But we don't know what G.I. is. So
he's Action Man.
Yeah. My brother had one with like fuzzy hair. It was really weird. He like had fuzzy hair on his head, whereas mine were all like plastic sculpt hair. And he had this like scar on his face as well. Like, you know, it's like,
you'd seen some action.
Action Man been in.
Yeah.
You've seen some action. Like, what's he been in? Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's it for Cheat Codes, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us here for another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. If you want to write in about Action Man and your experiences with him, I'd love to know if this was a fever dream that Steve had, or if you've actually experienced Action Man yourself.
I often dream about Action Man, P. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm just, is this, I don't know. It's one of those Mandela effect things. It's like, did you come from an alternate universe where Action Man replaces G.I. Joe? Or we'll have to find out. So you write in and let us know. And thank you to everybody who wrote in for this week's segment on the cheat code stuff. It was great to see hear from so many of you and hear about some of your experiences. This was a fun one. I love when we get to dig back up on something weird and random from the corners of the video game world. So we'll have to do another one of these soon. Like I said, keep your ears out for our emulator episode, because I'm sure that'll come up at some point. But if you guys, again, want to show your support, you want to get in touch, you want to join the community, you can find links to all of those things over on our website. That's flipscreen.games. Flipscreen.games is the website. Come and be a Patreon supporter. Join the Discord. However you choose to interact, we appreciate that you choose to do so. We appreciate that you have chosen us to spend some time with this week. And we'll catch you next time for another... Take two, Steve. We'll catch you next time for another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. Take it easy, everybody. Nailed it that time. Nailed it.